Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Richer. I'm the president of the board here at Astrho, and we're joined by Wil Slickers for our final closing session. And Heidi is on the line too to field any questions or chat. So this closing session, hey Heidi, she has face. This closing session is really intended for us to take a moment, reflect on some of the things we learned, but also be a source of inspiration. So not just kind of all the tactical things that you can take with you, but also from a more business strategy perspective and really thinking about how do you want to run your business. So with that, Wil, I'm going to let you have this amazing diverse background. And when we thought about who could be fun and inspirational to help us close it out, your name came up. So if you don't mind, I'll give it to you to talk about your background and all the diverse things you've done and you're doing right now.
Awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you for having me on. It's always nice to hang out with you. And ever since our first introduction together, it's just been awesome to, see the friendship and partnership grow. So thanks for having me here. I can just keep it pretty short. I started in hotels. I started with Marriott. It's where I found my love and passion for hospitality. And then I worked my way up there after a couple of years from the front desk. And then I became a manager of a couple boutique properties out in the Oregon coast. So I moved, moved states away to go do that. And that's where I started my podcast because I was more looking for new ways to grow instead of just, learning on the job, but learning to connect with other people in the industry, younger people that are maybe are wanting to learn more about revenue management or marketing or more guest service, all that good stuff. And the podcast was supposed to be kind of like a, just a fun little hobby, but then it turned and scaled to where we are today. We're, just doing it full time, and it's been such an honor and a blessing. But from December 27th, 2019 was my last day as a hotel GM out in the Oregon coast. And I've been running a vacation rental management company and the podcast ever since. So that's kind of my background. And so I kind of crossed over from that hotel line to the short-term rentals, especially after seeing the huge amount of similarities, as well as running a couple of vacation rentals on my own when I was doing the hotel stuff as well. So
Yeah,
it's been a fun journey.
Your great story of that entrepreneurial approach to life and then to the industry. And we're going to run this as a little more casual Q&A, but we want to try to draw from you your stories and really those nuggets of things to think about. So this is really about what is your moment maker.
Yeah.
And, at the end of the day, you can have the best technology, you can have the, great people in place, a great home or homes, but ultimately this is like the secret sauce is the moment maker. Yeah. So let's spend the next 20 minutes talking about that. And how do you figure out what your moment maker should be, right? And how that's unique to you. And how do you even create that? It's not like a playbook, or you can go like read the how-to. So I don't know if you want to say anything more about like introducing this moment maker. I mean, this is what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, no, I just think it's super important because there's a couple of things that come to mind is that we make, as humans in general, whether you're in hospitality or, aviation or whatever industry you might be in, we have to make decisions every day. And every time you make a decision, there's a moment usually created from that. And with hospitality, it's the beauty that we get to curate moments and we get to anticipate the experience with our guests and with our travelers and with our teams. And so that's where it's really, for me, that's where it gets become like an art. And I think vacation rental specifically, we are such a unique segment of hospitality because, Marriott's, Hilton's, IHG's, they have a pretty, brand standard, whether it's a courtyard or a residence or whatever. But the only real standard in vacation rentals, for the most part, is operations, good clean bed, good space, clean operating, all that stuff. But there's no property that's the same. We're very unique. And so there is no quote unquote set industry standard when it comes to how you need to look other than how you need to operate. And so being such a unique segment of hospitality, I think this is where we get to really embrace that because there's so many moments to be made. And I'm excited because it's different to everybody. You know, you can have a vacation rental host or owner or company that curates specifically to luxury, or you can have a host or company that really is that couple traveler, the digital nomad or whatever. So there's a lot of different needs and requirements from there. And I think that's where it gets real fun because you get to put your own twist to it.
Yeah, and ultimately the moment maker is about creating the emotional connection, right? Whoever your
Exactly.
customer is, how do you do that?
Yeah.
So we did want to tie it back to a few of the things we talked about, right? Like why are they important and how do these understanding these partners or technology and services, how does this help power your moment maker? So
Mm-hmm.
um, let's talk a little bit about Rent Responsibly. We heard from them at
Yes.
the very beginning of the conference, and Rent Responsibly's mission is to support, favorable regulation, help give people the tools they need to be good hosts, educate guests, be responsible. How does that tie to like creating these moments and connections as you run your business?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I love Dave and the whole Rent Responsibly team. So I'm glad that we got to tie them into it because there's two ways that I look at it. And from my point of view is that there's a micro level and there's a macro level. The micro level is your community, your local area, your local destination. So being a good host, being a good operator, being a good owner, being on top of your, whether it's permits, your codes, your safety inspections, then of course your operations, your cleanliness, all those basic functions, right? That represents on that micro level your community. How do you showcase yourself? How are you going to showcase, to people that are not from that area? I know staycations are really popular right now, but still we have people that travel from out of state, or maybe they've never been to the city, even though they live in the same state. You're representing that community in a lot of ways. So being able to not only have a good operations and do, quote unquote, rent responsibly, you have to understand that you get to tap into that community a lot more. And so I'll just use an example for us here. We're on this beautiful island just right between Seattle and the Canadian border. Not a lot of people come out here, but it's a beautiful place, especially on a day like today where it's sunny. And for us, what we've realized that we have a local coffee roaster who they're an amazing company, family owned business. They've been around forever. The owner actually has done a lot of like stuff selling to Starbucks that he like sold patents on coffee creations and all this like great history and story, right? So we're like, okay, how can we tap into that? Because yeah, like Washington State's a Starbucks state because it's where it was founded, but our local community has something really beautiful. And so how can we tie that in? So we've thought about, partnering up. Can we create a sip and stay package where a guest that really love coffee could have their first cup at the roaster bright and early before they even open and do a nice little roasting tour? Is that a possibility? On that that micro level, you're representing that community in a different way than anybody ever could. You can't find this stuff on Google. It has to be through your business and your story and your brand. So I think as an operator, whether you own, you're a host, or you're a management company that has multiple, properties in their portfolio, this is your moment maker, is tapping into that micro level community area. And how you do that in that micro level affects the industry on a macro level. How many times do you see Airbnb in the news or in the headlines of Yahoo News or CNN or Fox or whatever? We are part of that. Like, unfortunately, we have to be representative of the industry as a whole. So what you do on the micro level affects the macro. And I think, just going into that, you have to understand that there's a big picture. And as an industry or a segment of the industry that's so well, I guess, what would the word be, misunderstood sometimes. Not a lot of people know what goes on in the background. I think that's where and I'll quote a good friend, Damian Sheridan, who was on here.
Oh, yeah.
We have to do it right. This is a time all the eyes are on us. So I think this is a time to do that. And moment makers like a coffee roaster tour or something like that could be it.
Yeah. I love that reminder of, the timing too, right? Like our
Mhm.
industry really is in the spotlight. And so how do we take advantage of this kind of open door to attract all these new guests, but also be responsible in connecting? And so what I really heard you say is like, be local, because
Hmm.
by being local, elevating local, staying connected, those partners too are going to support you and also support favorable regulation,
Yeah,
right? And
100%.
support what you're doing, and like how it ties back to just like creating this good name in your market for
Yeah.
what we do.
Well, it's a long-term,
Yeah.
it's a long-term play. Dana Lubner from Rent Responsibly herself even said on the podcast that, it's important to have your, seat at the table, but in order to do that, you need to be carrying your chair around. And so carrying your chair around is part of the long game of being local, being active, because how many times have regulations been, beaten in the sense when people are trying to ban short-term rentals and they overcome that ban because of the advocacy with your neighbors. They don't have anything to do with short-term rentals, but they just remember, hey, they always partner up with us, or our family has stayed at their property and we love it. We stay with them all the time. Why would we want that to go away? We've had moments made from that company. So I
It's
think
good
that's
for us.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, that's a great one. So be local, stay connected. And then the next question is more related to technology.
Mhm.
So, throughout these last few days, we've heard from revenue management, pricing companies like Wheelhouse, operational kind of support technology like Breezeway. How does that all come together, right? Like why is that technology really important to create the moments?
Yeah, I love that question. It's one of my favorites. And you'll probably get this too, because from the hotel world, you get a lot of checklists, whether it's like I'll use the front desk in example because you have an AM, a mid shift, and a PM, and a night audit. So you have 4 basic shifts that go on at the front desk, and they all have a checklist of what they need to do before that shift really switches over to the next person. Um, and let's be honest, a lot of it can be automated, a lot of it. But the technology isn't there to support that. So you have front desk agents that are constantly doing tasks. They're constantly stepping away or thinking about doing other things or let's say checking in a guest and they can't do it because these tasks weren't completed or weren't completed right. So they have to do all this extra stuff that should not need to be done. And that's a disservice to the guests because it's taking up time. It's making things frustrating, especially after a long day of travel. So things that are able to automate that unnecessary, barrier for good guest experience and good moments made, that gives the opportunity, I think, for us as operators to really, all right, like obviously trust but verify your technology. So you create the system, you put it in play. You're gonna have to tweak it here and there, but if you can get a lot of that, unnecessary stuff out of the way, kind of out of sight, out of mind. It's running in the background. If anything goes wrong, you're able to fix it, but shouldn't have to be a constant focus. You have that opportunity to step back and, Heather's coming in and I hear it's her anniversary. And you know what? We have a great local winery partnership. I can go get a bottle of wine. I'm pretty sure she mentioned something about doing a wine tour the next day after they check in. So let me start it off with getting her one of our favorites and, creating a moment for when you arrive to the property. That is what I see technology playing a role. Not replacing humans or doing any type stuff like that, but it's more of a let's get rid of this stuff that we don't need to do 24/7. That way we can create those moments, if that
Yeah, like it
makes more
creates the
sense.
space so then you
Yeah,
can like lift your head up and actually create, think about, add some critical thinking skills to like, who is this guest? How do I connect?
yeah,
And yeah, that the technology is never going to do that, right? But if you don't have that in place, you're going to be bogged down with the day to day and the checklist and not be able to elevate your, yeah, the guest
yeah,
connection.
exactly.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Kind of elevate and make the space.
Yeah, and speaking of elevate, thinking on the back end too, you have companies like Breezeway, who I'm pretty sure was on the
Yeah.
partner showcase here. So another pain point is housekeeping. They know what they need to do, but things can get missed, especially when you're running around with pen and paper, luggage carts, or not luggage carts, but like housekeeping carts and all that other stuff, right? Whether they're a vacation rental company or a hotel company, it's still a not the funnest job in the industry, and things do get missed, especially when you have time crunches. So having tools like that, being able to make sure that you can, implement everything right then and there, they have it on their phone, they go through it, easy, simple, done. It saves you guys on operation level too. So I think it's just, there's a give and take for both technology and the human interaction.
Yeah. Yeah, the space to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's a few things here, right? Like kind of how you show up in your neighborhood, in your community, and then how you're running your operation so that you can create these moments, create these emotional connections. And these are the things that really make you stand out and drive these like amazing reviews, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
know how valuable reviews are. So ultimately, this isn't us saying like, we can't say like, here are the directions. Here is like exactly what you should do to create moments for your guests.
Mm-hmm.
This requires that really personal, thoughtful just approach. So let's hear your story, Wil. Like, what is your moment maker? How do you do it?
Yeah, well, I like to use a certain, I guess, phrase often is people that are wired to create remarkable experiences that are anticipated and shared. I feel like there is a certain personality type or just even a trait maybe in our industry that people like there's a lot of people that are in it for like, I can show you how to make $1 million on Airbnb. Great. That's always cool. But for us, I think for the people that are really in it for genuine love of the industry and the actual connection of people, like I have guests that I still talk to this day from day one, which was like 6-7 years ago. Mr. Chardine, Mrs. Malone, like I still remember them and still talk to them because of that connection that you're able to do when you create certain moments, just getting to remember the little details. So my always go to is just be authentic, be genuine, and then of course attention to detail. Just really care about what you're doing, because when you do, that's going to spark that wired part of the phrase I said, the wired to create. You're going to be so, I just driven by that drive of I have to find a way to get this moment created for my guests, because it's not about really the review. Like the review is a perk of creating these moments. This is really about the memories that when people get to either the end of their life or if they're going through a hard time in life, you kind of reflect on, yeah, the big moments, of course, but there's always that little thing when you have that little moment of how someone made you feel. And you and I were talking about this the other day. It's people don't care about what you said or what you did, but they do care about how you made them feel, and they do remember how you made them feel. So
Yeah.
if you can tap into that in any way possible, like for us, we really just do love the local community that we're in, the local coffee roaster, the local restaurants, the brewery that's in the town right next door, which you have to drive through to even get to the island that we're on. All this little stuff, like we love tapping into that. And I think that's where we get that wired to create, because we can create cool packages with the technology. We can do all this stuff and not only create revenue for us, but then create revenue for them. And then also create friendships with our guests, because they're going to be, reaching out. I get messages from guests all the time saying, "Hey, Wil, like, thank you so much for that recommendation. Jerry at the brewery was great. He really took great care of us. We're definitely coming back. We bought actually a growler. We're going to bring it to the property and we're going to enjoy it next to the fire tonight." Just simple things like that. And that's where you get to really enjoy. So I think, not to ramble too long, but just that if you can tap into whatever gets you excited, whatever excites you about the industry, whether it's technology, your destination, the properties that you're proud to represent, tap into that and really just get crazy with it.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add a little personal story too of my own. So I
Yeah.
worked for Kimpton Hotels and Restaurants for over 10 years, and Kimpton has made the top 10 best place to work list for many years. And one of the reasons is, as a brand, they do this really well, and you can't
Mm-hmm.
really train it. It can't be in the book. But what you said about like authentic care
Mm-hmm.
and just genuinely like getting to know your guests to figure out what it is that they need, and how are you going to connect with them, right? Just genuine care and connection. And we talk about that at Kimpton too. We talked about, and I think another way to think about it is, do you want to be a legendary brand? Like, how do
Hmm.
you create legendary brands that people are raving fans? And it's like ridiculous raving fans, right? That are just going to be advocates
Yeah.
anywhere they go. And we love, I always love the example of like, you've arrived as a legendary brand when somebody's tattooing it on their body,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
like, so if you put your mindset in like, I want to have this wow, this moment. Yeah, there's again, like it just is kind of challenging yourself to like be creative, be local, and find the connection. So
Exactly.
I don't know. Yeah, go for it. Well, yeah, summarize that.
Well, you said like the tattoo, and we talked about Harley Davidson,
Yeah.
and I worked for Harley Davidson before I even got into the Marriott side of
Oh my
things,
God,
and
I didn't know that.
well, it's cool because you have that dealership on a local level. They're serving that area where that it's freakishly like a cult almost, where people are just dedicated to Harley, or they're dedicated to their brand, right? But then when you're able to grow that to a huge national level, where bikers all over the world are doing that, not just on their local scene, it comes back to that micro and that macro level of things. You have those dealerships serving that area, but in the scheme of things, it's a huge community globally around the world. And that's the same thing for vacation rentals. I don't know anybody that has a vacation rental brand tattoo yet, but when I do, I'll let you know. It'll be interesting to see what brand it is. But at the end of the day, we're all serving our local areas, but on a global community scale. It's incredible. You and I'm in Washington State, you're in California, and we have friends all over the world, such as the example of everyone who's been on the panel for this partnership showcase. So it's incredible to see all that come together, because that's what it does. It's not just the guests and the travelers, it's the industry as a whole.
I do want to say one more thing that I think is really unique about the members of Astro. You can't have mass personalization, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just not a thing. And when you have like your brand of one or several homes, you actually have this really interesting advantage to hit a personal level that's harder for brands that are bigger.
Yeah,
And
you're not wrong.
it's like it's something to really tap into. And as a host or a smaller entrepreneurial operator, it's something special that the larger brands actually can't copy.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. I was going to say, just add on to that, is that we've had actually a couple of homeowners for our management company come to us from bigger brands because of they just aren't personalized. I don't, it takes them a week and a half just to respond to a message. They haven't fixed the AC, even though that's been on a ticket for a month and a half or whatever. Like, they are starting to realize, yeah, this is a great big name that I'm with. They do generate revenue, but I'm not getting the service that I would like from compared to like a local person who does the same thing, if not better. That's what we've actually kind of seen, and not to like toot our own horn, but we have a property that has 2 vacant weekends. It was one, we had 1 cancellation, but 2 vacant weekends until October. And we've maxed the revenue, like, the ADRs that they were getting prior to now are insane. And so having 2 open spots and seeing that the owner not only getting better revenue for their monthly incomes, but they're also getting better service, they're getting better attention, they're getting better care for their property, because we are able to focus on that at a higher level. So I think there is a big play for a lot of small, operated businesses and entrepreneurs to tap into that and just figure out where can I, fill in the gap. So
yeah. Well, this has been an awesome conversation about how to make the moments. And I think it's like, if you want to stand apart, this is the secret sauce.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
go figure it out, right?
Yeah. Like you said, there's no playbook. It's just be authentic and go for it. Just run, have fun. Yeah.
Well, always a pleasure talking to you. And I'm so glad we were able to help end this first kind of inaugural conference for Astro. And hopefully next year we'll be in person. We'll see.
But hey, when it's in person, I'll be the first one on a plane. So
awesome.
You let me know.
Well, we'll hope to see you there. And for you on the line too, hope to see you there. And we'll be continuing these conversations in the community. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for a great conference, and thanks for helping us wrap it up well.
My pleasure. Thank you for having
Okay.
me.
Thanks. Talk soon. Okay. Bye.